Long before history was written, before cities rose and empires fell, people gathered around fires to share stories, tales of gods who walked among mortals, of heroes who defied the impossible, and of magic so potent it could reshape the world. One such story begins in the mist-shrouded valleys of ancient Greece, where a single golden apple, inscribed with the words, "For the fairest," sparked a divine rivalry so fierce it would topple kingdoms and birth legends we still whisper today. These weren't just stories, they were echoes of something deeper: humanity's oldest fears, dreams, and the unshakable belief that the ordinary world hides extraordinary secrets. From the thunderous halls of Valhalla to the shadowy temples of forgotten sorcerers, myths and magic have always been more than entertainment. They're the lifeblood of cultures, the hidden maps to what people valued, feared, and dared to hope for. Imagine standing at the edge of a Viking longship, staring into a storm said to be conjured by Thor's fury, or walking the labyrinthine corridors of an Egyptian tomb, where every wall whispers spells meant to guide the dead into eternity. These sagas don't just belong to the past, they pulse with questions we still grapple with. What makes a true hero? Can destiny be outrun? And what if magic isn't just a myth, but a force we've simply forgotten how to see? That's the journey we're embarking on together. Across 25 epic sagas, we'll unravel the threads of legend and reality, from the well-trodden paths of Arthurian knights to the haunting, lesser-known tales of Slavic forest spirits and African sky gods. You'll meet tricksters who outwit death, lovers whose bonds defy time, and warriors who stare down monsters, both literal and metaphorical. Some stories will feel familiar, like old friends revisited. Others will strike you with their strangeness, their beauty, their sheer audacity. But one thing ties them all together. They remind us that the human imagination is the most powerful magic of all. So take a step closer to the firelight. The shadows are just deep enough to hide wonders, and the night is long enough to uncover them all. Long before Achilles stormed the walls of Troy or Odysseus tricked his way past the Cyclops, a king carved his legend into clay tablets that would survive for millennia. The Epic of Gilgamesh isn't just a story, it's humanity's first surviving masterpiece, a window into the fears and dreams of a civilization that thrived over 4,000 years ago in the heart of Mesopotamia. Picture this: a ruthless king, 2/3 god and 1/3 man, who builds towering walls around his city but cannot conquer his own arrogance. Enter Enkidu, a wild man shaped from clay by the gods, sent to humble Gilgamesh. What begins as a battle between them erupts into one of literature's most profound friendships, a bond so fierce it drives them to slay monsters and defy deities, only to shatter when Enkidu pays the ultimate price for their hubris. Here's where the story turns from adventure to something deeper. Gilgamesh, once unstoppable, is brought to his knees not by a blade but by grief. His desperate journey to cheat death, crossing poisonous seas, confronting the lone survivor of a great flood, even retrieving a plant that promises eternal youth, mirrors humanity's oldest struggle. We still ask the same questions today. Why must we die? Can greatness outlast mortality? The answers Gilgamesh finds are heartbreakingly simple, etched into tablets buried for centuries beneath the sands of Nineveh, until archaeologists uncovered them in the 19th century, their wedge-shaped script whispering across time. What's astonishing isn't just the tale's age, but how vividly it echoes in later myths. The flood story predates Noah by 1,000 years. The restless hero who defies gods feels achingly familiar to fans of Hercules or Achilles. Even the bond between Gilgamesh and Enkidu shadows later duos like David and Jonathan or Frodo and Sam. This saga didn't just influence mythology, it laid the blueprint for storytelling itself, proving that the oldest stories still hold the freshest truths about what it means to be human. And perhaps that's the real magic of Gilgamesh. In a world where kings claimed divinity and temples touched the sky, the most enduring lesson wasn't about power or immortality. It was about the fragile, fleeting beauty of friendship, the weight of loss, and the courage to face life knowing death waits at the end. When the ancient scribes pressed their styluses into clay, they weren't just recording a myth. They were capturing the first heartbeat of what would become every hero's journey. If Gilgamesh taught us that even gods in human form must face mortality, Homer's Iliad turns that lesson into a storm of fire and blood. This isn't just a war story, it's a symphony of rage, honor, and the fragile line between humanity and divinity, composed over 3,000 years ago but still echoing in our bones. At its heart stands Achilles, the Greeks' greatest warrior, whose wrath burns so hot it nearly destroys his own people. When Agamemnon steals his war prize, the enslaved woman Briseis, Achilles doesn't just withdraw from battle. He prays for his comrades to fall, letting pride scorch the very bonds of loyalty. Homer doesn't offer us a flawless hero, he gives us a man so brilliantly, terrifyingly human that his flaws become the pivot on which empires tremble. And then there's Troy, that fabled city of towering walls where King Priam watches his sons die one by one, and Hector, the noblest of them all, faces Achilles knowing he's already lost. Their duel isn't just swords clashing, it's fate and free will colliding. Hector could flee, but honor chains him to the battlefield. Achilles could spare him, but grief for his slain lover Patroclus hardens his heart. Even the gods are powerless to stop it, though they scheme from Olympus like chess players nudging pieces. Zeus himself weighs their fates on golden scales, yet the outcome was written long before the first spear flew. But the Iliad's magic lies in the gaps between myth and history. For centuries, scholars dismissed Troy as pure fantasy, until Heinrich Schliemann, a businessman turned archaeologist, dug into a Turkish hillside in the 1870s and found a city burned to the ground, its layers of ruins whispering of sieges and rebirth. Was this the Troy of Homer's epic? The debate still rages, but the discovery proved something profound. Even the wildest myths often hide kernels of truth. And then there's the Trojan horse, that iconic trick straddling the line between genius and madness. The Greeks don't win through strength alone, they win because Odysseus, the shrewdest of them all, understands that war is as much about stories as swords. A hollow offering to the gods becomes a coffin for a kingdom, proving that in myth as in life, the most dangerous weapons are the ones we don't see coming. Modern retellings keep this saga pulsing. From Brad Pitt's brooding Achilles in the movie Troy to Madeline Miller's novel The Song of Achilles, which turns Patroclus and Achilles' bond into a love story for the ages. Each adaptation asks the same question Homer did. What does it mean to be remembered? For Achilles, the answer was a choice, a short, glorious life over a long, forgotten one. But the real tragedy isn't his death. It's that he only understands the cost of his rage when Priam, the broken king of the enemy he's destroyed, kneels to kiss his hands and beg for Hector's body. In that moment, two enemies weep together, and the epic's deepest truth surfaces. Even in war, we are all someone's child. The Iliad doesn't end with victory or defeat. It ends with funerals, with exhausted men burying sons they'll never see again. And perhaps that's why it endures, not for the battles or the gods, but for the quiet, devastating reminder that glory is just another word for loss. The Iliad's ashes had barely cooled when Homer spun his next masterpiece, a tale not of war's fury, but of a man's impossible journey home. The Odyssey isn't just an adventure, it's a 10-year odyssey of the mind, a labyrinth where every twist reveals another layer of human resilience. Odysseus, the architect of the Trojan horse, now finds his own life unraveling like one of his tricks. His voyage isn't measured in nautical miles, but in tests of wit where brains always outshine brawn. Take the Cyclops Polyphemus. Trapped in that cave, Odysseus doesn't rely on strength to escape the one-eyed giant. He sharpens his tongue instead, telling the monster his name is Nobody, so when Polyphemus screams for help, he roars that nobody has blinded him. It's wordplay as survival tool, proof that in this world, the quickest blade is the one between your ears, but cunning alone isn't enough. Circe's island teaches Odysseus that some battles demand surrender. When his men are turned to pigs by her sorcery, he doesn't charge in swinging. He kneels, he listens, he learns. For a year, he lets himself be seduced by her magic, absorbing its lessons until even the witch becomes his ally. Here's the paradox: the hero known for trickery grows most when he stops deceiving, when he admits he doesn't have all the answers. Then come the sirens, those haunting voices promising forbidden knowledge. Odysseus doesn't resist their call. He leans into it, ordering his crew to lash him to the mast so he can hear their song without being destroyed by it. It's a metaphor for every addiction, every temptation we're desperate to taste but smart enough to fear. His solution: trust others to hold him accountable. Even the mighty need ropes sometimes. What makes the Odyssey timeless isn't the monsters, it's how it maps the human psyche. The lotus eaters drifting through life numb to purpose. The vengeful god Poseidon embodying nature's indifference to mortal suffering. Penelope at her loom, weaving and unweaving her shroud, a mirror of her husband's endless delays. Their reunion isn't just romantic, it's a quiet revolution. After 20 years, they recognize each other not by grand gestures, but by the intimate knowledge of a shared bed built from a living olive tree, roots too deep to fake. Modern storytellers still steal from Homer's playbook. James Joyce's Ulysses drops a wandering admin into Dublin as a modern Odysseus. Films like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? retell the saga with chain gangs and bluegrass. Even video games frame quests as odysseys, where the real treasure isn't the goal but the scars and wisdom earned along the way. The genius of Odysseus isn't that he comes home, it's that the journey changes what home means. He leaves Troy a conqueror and returns a man who's learned the weight of a kingdom is nothing compared to the weight of a single olive wood bedpost. If the Iliad feels like a thunderstorm, fierce, concentrated, and brutal, then the Mahabharata is the entire ocean, vast, churning, and impossible to contain in a single glance. This isn't just India's greatest epic, it's a universe unto itself, stretching over 100,000 verses, weaving together war, love, duty, and the cosmos in a tapestry so intricate it still shapes lives 3,000 years after its creation. At its core burns the Kurukshetra War, a conflict between two branches of a royal family, the virtuous Pandavas and their corrupt cousins, the Kauravas. But calling this a simple battle between good and evil would miss the point entirely. The Mahabharata thrives in the gray zones where even heroes falter and villains weep, where the god Krishna himself steps onto the battlefield not with a weapon, but with a sermon that will echo through millennia. Picture the scene. Arjuna, the Pandavas' greatest archer, stands frozen in his chariot as the war drums begin. Across the field, he sees not enemies, but his own teachers, uncles, and childhood friends. His bow slips from his hands. This moment of despair births the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's immortal lesson on duty, destiny, and the soul's journey. You grieve for those who cannot be slain, Krishna tells him, his voice cutting through the chaos. The Gita isn't just philosophy, it's a battle cry for the soul, urging action without attachment, courage without hatred. Wars will be fought, it whispers, but the true conflict is always within. The Mahabharata's magic lies in its contradictions. It's a story where gods walk as men. Krishna, the eighth avatar of Vishnu, schemes and laughs like a mortal, yet holds the universe in his gaze. Where Draupadi, wife to all 5 Pandava brothers, transforms humiliation into defiance, her sari becoming infinite as she's stripped in court, saved by divine grace or perhaps her own unbreakable will. Where Bhishma, the grandsire bound by oath to protect the throne, lies on a bed of arrows for days, choosing when to die because death itself obeys his command. Every character is a constellation of flaws and virtues, their choices rippling across generations. And then there's the war itself, 18 days of carnage so seismic it said the rivers ran red and the heavens trembled. The Kauravas field armies of millions, yet fall one by one to the Pandavas' cunning. Bhima smashing Dushasana's chest to fulfill a vow, Arjuna piercing Karna's wheel when honor falters. Even victory tastes like ashes. When the smoke clears, the winners sit hollow-eyed among the corpses of their kin, whispering the epic's bitter truth. In triumph, we lose what we fought to save. Today, the Mahabharata isn't confined to ancient texts. It lives in Indian courtrooms where lawyers quote the Gita, in Bollywood films where modern Draupadis demand justice, even in astrophysics, the war's timeline eerily matching descriptions of celestial events. Its legacy is a mirror. For every Arjuna paralyzed by doubt, for every Yudhishthira who gambles away his kingdom but never his truth, there's a piece of us wrestling with the same choices. The epic's real power, it never gives easy answers. It simply holds up the world in all its mess and majesty and asks, now that you've seen it, what will you do? While the Mahabharata wrestles with moral ambiguity, the Ramayana offers a different kind of brilliance, the glow of a hero who seems to walk in light itself. Rama, the Prince of Ayodhya, isn't just a warrior, he's Dharma incarnate, a man who would rather lose his throne than break a promise, who steps into exile without hesitation because his father's word is sacred. But this isn't just a tale of perfection. It's a story that tests idealism against the jagged edges of reality, where even the noblest choices leave wounds. The heart of the epic beats around Sita's abduction. Ravana, the 10-headed demon king of Lanka, doesn't just steal Rama's wife, he steals the very symbol of purity and devotion. What follows isn't merely a rescue mission, it's a cosmic recalibration. Enter Hanuman, the monkey god whose devotion to Rama becomes the stuff of legend. This isn't Hercules with his club or Thor with his hammer. Hanuman's power lies in his humility. He doesn't just leap across the ocean to find Sita, he carries an entire mountain of healing herbs when Rama's brother Lakshmana lies dying. His strength isn't in his arms but in his heart, a reminder that true loyalty moves mountains literally. Yet the Ramayana's moral dilemmas linger long after the battle ends. When Rama finally rescues Sita, he doesn't embrace her immediately. He questions her purity, forcing her to undergo an Agni Pariksha, a trial by fire to prove her chastity. It's a moment that still sparks debate today. Was Rama upholding duty or succumbing to doubt? Sita's quiet defiance as she steps into the flames, only to be carried unharmed by the fire god Agni, isn't just a miracle, it's a silent protest against the very ideals Rama represents. The story fractures beautifully across cultures. In Thailand's Ramakien, Ravana isn't just a villain, he's a tragic figure with his own code of honor. Indonesian shadow puppetry turns Hanuman into a trickster, his antics blurring the lines between sacred and playful. These variations aren't distortions, they're proof of the story's elasticity, how it molds itself to the fears and values of each land it touches. What makes the Ramayana endure isn't its battles or its magic, though they dazzle. It's the unbearable weight of its questions. Can love survive distrust? Can duty ever justify cruelty? And when Sita finally chooses to return to the earth that birthed her, vanishing into the soil rather than live with Rama's doubts, the epic doesn't offer easy answers. It leaves us with the echo of her silence, a reminder that even the most sacred stories have shadows. While the Greeks had Odysseus yearning for Ithaca, the Romans celebrated a different wanderer, one whose destiny wasn't just a homecoming but the birth of an empire. Virgil's Aeneid isn't merely a sequel to Homer's epics, it's a calculated reinvention where the Trojan prince Aeneas carries the weight of Rome's future on his shoulders. Unlike Odysseus, who fights for personal survival, Aeneas is never free to choose his own path. Every storm, every monster, even his fleeting love affair with Carthage's queen Dido, becomes a test of his sacred duty to found a city that will one day rule the world. The genius of the Aeneid lies in its duality. On the surface, it's a gripping adventure, Aeneas escaping Troy's burning ruins, descending into the underworld where his father's ghost reveals Rome's glorious fate, battling the warrior Turnus in a clash that mirrors Achilles and Hector. But beneath the heroics pulses a potent political message. Virgil wrote this epic under Emperor Augustus, who sought to cement his reign as a divine mandate. By tying Rome's origins to Troy's fallen heroes, Virgil didn't just entertain. He crafted a mythic pedigree for an empire hungry for legitimacy. Yet the poem's true power emerges in its quieter, darker moments. When Aeneas abandons Dido to fulfill his destiny, her curse prophesies eternal enmity between Carthage and Rome, a haunting foreshadowing of the Punic Wars. Her suicide, stabbing herself on a pyre with Aeneas's sword, isn't just tragic, it's a scathing critique of empire's human cost. Even Aeneas, the so-called perfect leader, leaves a trail of broken vows in his wake. Virgil's Rome is glorious, but its foundation is soaked in sacrifices no epic can fully sanitize. Compare this to Greek tragedies where heroes rage against fate. Aeneas never rages, he obeys even when it breaks him, his final act killing Turnus in a fury after seeing his enemy where a fallen comrade's armor isn't triumphant. It's a glimpse of the brutality Rome would wield to secure its dominion. Unlike Homer's Odysseus, who learns humility, Aeneas learns to silence his heart. Modern readers often miss how revolutionary this was. Before Virgil, Roman mythology was a patchwork of local gods and borrowed Greek tales. The Aeneid gave Rome something Greece could never claim, a national epic where destiny and duty trump personal glory. Today, as archaeologists uncover Troy's real layers and historians debate Augustus's propaganda, the poem endures not just as a cornerstone of literature, but as a mirror to every nation that insists its rise was written in the stars. Far from the sun-baked ruins of Troy and the sacred rivers of India, in the mist-cloaked halls of Scandinavia, a different kind of hero emerges, one who doesn't wrestle with gods or destiny, but with the monsters lurking just beyond the firelight. Beowulf isn't just a warrior, he's a human bulwark against the chaos that gnaws at the edges of civilization. When he arrives at Heorot, King Hrothgar's mead hall, it's not for glory or gold, but because the place is under siege by something unspeakable. Grendel, the Shadow Stalker, isn't some misunderstood outcast, he's pure malice, a descendant of Cain who hates the sound of joy. The battle between them isn't just flesh against claw, it's order against entropy, community against isolation, light against the abyss. What makes Beowulf extraordinary isn't his strength, it's his restraint. He fights Grendel bare-handed, matching brutality with fairness, because to use a weapon would dishonor the fight. When Grendel's mother drags him into her underwater lair, he doesn't panic, he adapts, seizing a giant sword from her own hoard to turn her violence against her. These aren't just action sequences, they're morality plays. The poet lingers on the hilt of that sword, carved with the story of the biblical flood, a deliberate echo linking pagan heroism to Christian providence. Beowulf exists in the twilight between two worlds, where Valkyries and the Old Testament share the same breath, yet the real tension lies in the manuscript itself. The sole surviving copy of Beowulf almost didn't make it to us, a single fire-scarred codex, barely spared from the flames that destroyed the Cotton Library in 1731. Imagine history without it. No H-wheat to open the tale, no dragon waiting in the third act, no scholar's ink spilled over whether this was a Christian scribe preserving pagan lore or a pagan story baptized by a monk's pen. The poem refuses easy answers, much like its hero. Modern retellings twist the saga into new shapes. John Gardner's Grendel forces us to see the story through the monster's eyes, lonely, philosophical, raging against a universe that gave him teeth but no purpose. Films and games reduce Beowulf to a hack-and-slash brute, but the original is subtler. His final battle against the dragon isn't triumphant, it's elegiac. An old king, weakened by time, facing a foe he knows will kill him, yet charging forward because that's what guardians do. His people burn him on a pyre piled with treasures, a funeral as wasteful as it is beautiful, because the poem understands this truth. Even the mightiest are fleeting, and the only immortality lies in the stories we leave behind. So why does Beowulf still grip us? Perhaps because it's the first superhero story. A man who stands where others falter, not because he's invincible, but because someone must. Or perhaps it's the eerie realism beneath the fantasy, the fear that no matter how strong we build our halls, something hungry always waits in the dark. The poets answer, light the torches, sing louder, and when the shadow comes, meet it with bare hands. Deep in the frozen heart of Norse legend, where swords whisper prophecies and bloodlines carry doom like inheritance, the Volsunga Saga spins a tale so potent it bleeds into our modern myths. This isn't just a story about a dragon, it's a web of oaths broken, loves cursed, and a golden ring that poisons every hand it touches. At its center stands Sigurd, the greatest hero the North ever forged. Raised by a blacksmith who once pulled a shattered sword from a tree sound familiar, Sigurd doesn't just slay the dragon Fafnir, he cooks its heart and tastes its blood, gaining the power to understand birdsong. But the real magic isn't in the killing, it's in the tragedy that follows. That dragon was once a man, twisted by greed for the very treasure Sigurd now claims. And that treasure, it's anchored by a ring, one that promised power but delivered only ruin to everyone who held it, from the gods who cursed it to the dwarves who crafted it. Now lean closer, because this is where the saga fractures into our world. J.R.R. Tolkien didn't just borrow from the Volsunga Saga, he inhaled it, the One Ring's corrupting influence. That's Fafnir's hoard reborn, the broken sword reforged, Sigurd's Gram mirrors Narsil, the blade that will become Aragorn's Anduril. Even the dragon's lair, where Bilbo confronts Smaug, echoes Sigurd's descent into Fafnir's domain. But Tolkien's genius was in reshaping these bones into something new, where Norse fate is absolute, Middle-earth offers redemption. Boromir resists the ring's lure in his final moments. Wagner's operatic ring cycle, meanwhile, leans hard into the original's inevitability. His Siegfried, the German Sigurd, is just as brave, just as doomed, but the music swells with a romantic grandeur the icy Norse prose never allows. Speaking of Wagner, his four-opera epic isn't just inspired by the Volsunga Saga, it's a fever dream remix. Valkyries ride lightning strikes, dwarves scheme in leitmotifs, and the ring's curse becomes a metaphor for industrial capitalism's rot. Yet for all its spectacle, Wagner's version loses something crucial, the quiet humanity of the original. In the saga, when Sigurd discovers his wife Gudrun's brother murdered him for gold, his dying words aren't rage or lament, they're a request to see his infant son one last time. The Norse didn't want gods, they wanted heroes who burned bright and broke fast, leaving behind sagas that stung with truth. So why does this 1,000-year-old story still clutch our imagination? Maybe because it understands the price of desire better than any modern parable. That ring isn't just a MacGuffin. It's the lie we all whisper to ourselves that just a little more power, a little more gold will finally make us safe. Sigurd's tragedy isn't that he failed, it's that he won exactly what he sought and it destroyed him anyway. The Volsunga Saga doesn't offer happy endings. It offers something rarer, a warning carved in runes and dragon's blood that echoes from Viking longships to Hollywood blockbusters. Some curses, it seems, are too strong even for heroes to break. Far to the north, where the aurora borealis dances over snow-laden forests, the Kalevala weaves a spell unlike any other epic. This isn't just Finland's national treasure, it's a living tapestry of shamanic chants, cosmic rivalries, and an artifact so powerful it could grind out endless fortune. Compiled in the 19th century by Elias Lönnrot from centuries of oral poetry, the Kalevala feels both ancient and startlingly fresh. Its verses pulsing with the rhythm of rune singers who once summoned magic with nothing but their voices. At its heart stands Vainamarinen, the eternal bard whose songs can bend reality. He doesn't wield a sword, his weapon is wisdom, his battles fought with cantel melodies and riddles that shape the world. When he needs a boat, he doesn't carve it, he sings it into existence, note by note. But even he meets his match in Lauhai, the cunning witch queen of Pohjola, a shadowy realm where the sun rarely touches the earth. Their clashes aren't over gold or glory, but the Sampo, a mystical mill that churns out salt, grain, and gold, an object of such abundance it blurs the line between blessing and curse. What makes the Kalevala mesmerizing is its magic system. Spells aren't just cast, they're spoken into being, with the right words holding the power to heal wounds or sink warships. When a young hero, Lemminkainen, is dismembered and thrown into a river, his mother doesn't weep. She rakes the water with a copper comb, chanting his pieces back together. This is magic as the Finns understood it, practical, woven into daily life, yet capable of tilting the cosmos. The Sampo's fate reveals the epic's deeper tension. Stolen by Vainamarinen and his comrades, it's shattered in a sea battle, its fragments scattering to the depths. Some say those pieces still wash ashore, explaining why the Baltic hides sudden riches. But the real magic isn't in the artifact, it's in the act of creation itself. The Kalevala's heroes aren't just characters, they're archetypes of the artist, the smith, the wanderer, each reminding us that stories, like spells, can rebuild a broken world. Modern echoes of the Kalevala are everywhere, from Tolkien's Quenya language, inspired by Finnish, to heavy metal bands like Amorphis, who have turned its verses into thunderous lyrics. Yet its greatest legacy might be how it resurrected a culture. Lönnrot's compilation didn't just preserve myths, it gave Finland a voice during Russian rule, proving that a people's identity can be as unbreakable as Vainamarinen's songs. The Kalevala doesn't just belong to the past, it hums in every sauna's steam, every winter's first freeze, waiting for someone to listen. Across the misty hills of Wales, where castles crumble into myth and the wind carries whispers of the unseen, the Mabinogion waits, a collection of stories so rich they've been called the Welsh answer to Homer's epics. But don't expect straightforward heroes or tidy morals. Here, magic isn't just a tool. It's the very fabric of reality, where kings marry goddesses, warriors trade places with badgers, and a cauldron can resurrect the dead with one chilling catch. The dead return, but without the ability to speak, their eyes forever haunted by what they've seen. This is the other world bleeding into our own, a realm where rules dissolve and every enchantment carries a price. The four branches, the heart of the Mabinogion, are anything but predictable. Take P-Will, Prince of David, who stumbles into the court of Aron, Lord of the Otherworld, and strikes a deal so bizarre it redefines friendship. For a year, they swap faces, lives, even beds, P-Will ruling Anon with kindness, Aron wearing P-Will's form to silence an old enemy. No swords clash, no treasures change hands. The real test, honor in another man's skin. When the year ends, Aron gifts P-Will with more than gold. He grants him the title, Head of Anon, a bond between worlds that echoes in later tales of Arthur's connection to Avalon. Then there's Branwen, whose story starts as a diplomatic marriage and spirals into a tragedy of almost Shakespearean scale. Her brother Bran the Blessed, a giant so vast he can wade across the Irish Sea, gifts her to an Irish king, only for her to suffer abuse that sparks a war of mutual annihilation. The climax isn't a battle, it's two kings playing chess on a riverbank, the last survivors of their armies, while ravens pick at the corpses. Branwen dies of a broken heart, and Bran's severed head, still speaking, leads his people home. It's myth as anti-war parable, where even victory tastes like ashes. But the Mabinogion's true sorcery lies in its casual surrealism. In Math Fab Mathonwy, a woman made of flowers gives birth to a boy who transforms into an eagle, his screams shaking the heavens until another sorcerer coaxes him back to human form with poetry. Later, the legendary Pryderi trades places with a badger in a cursed sack. a scene that feels less like high fantasy and more like a druid's fever dream. These aren't just stories, they're fragments of a world view where the barriers between human, animal, and divine are as thin as mist. And then, of course, there's Arthur, not the chivalric king of later romances, but a shadowy warlord moving through these tales like a rumor. His earliest Welsh incarnation appears in Culhwch and Olwen, where he isn't the star but a supporting player helping his cousin complete an impossible quest. The giant Ysbyddaden demands 40 feats before releasing his daughter Olwen, from plucking a comb from between the ears of a venomous boar to stealing the shears of a monstrous witch. Arthur's men, a who's who of Celtic weirdness, a tracker who can sniff a footprint from a week ago, a warrior who grows taller in water, and a shapeshifter who dies 3 times in one battle. This Arthur isn't a symbol, he's a catalyst, his court a nexus where the impossible becomes routine. What makes the Mabinogion endure isn't just its strangeness, it's how these tales resist easy interpretation. The otherworld isn't a reward or a punishment, it's simply there, indifferent as rain. Heroes fail as often as they triumph, and magic follows its own inscrutable logic. Modern authors like Alan Garner and Susanna Clarke have mined its depths for inspiration, but the original remains untamed, whispering from the pages like a half-remembered dream. To read it is to step into a forest where every tree might lead you home or deeper into the wilds. While the Norse carved their sagas in runes and the Greeks etched theirs on temple walls, the Maya wove their cosmology into something far more fragile and miraculous. The Popol Vuh isn't just a creation myth, it's a survival story twice over. First, as the tale of gods sculpting humans from corn after failed attempts with mud and wood. Second, as a text smuggled through the fires of colonial conquest, its secrets preserved by indigenous scribes who transcribed it in secret using the alphabet of their oppressors. This is no passive relic, it's a rebellion inked on paper, a bridge between the 16th century KH people and their ancestors who saw the universe as a living, breathing entity. The story begins not with light but with silence. The gods Tepu and Gukumat stir in the primordial sea, speaking the world into existence. Earth, they say, and the land rises like the back of a great turtle. But their true masterpiece comes later, after the animals disappoint them and the mudmen crumble. The third attempt births humans from maize yellow, white, red, and black kernels ground into flesh, giving us limbs to labor and mouths to praise the gods. Yet this gift of life comes with a cruel twist. The gods blur humanity's vision so we can't see beyond the horizon, forever yearning for the divine just out of reach. Enter the hero twins Hunahpu and Expalanc, the heart of the Popol Vuh's magic. Their father and uncle, failed ball players, were executed by the lords of Xibalba, the Mayan underworld, a place less like Hades and more like a cosmic game rigged against the living. When the twins descend to avenge them, they don't charge in with blades. They outwit death itself, turning the underworld's horrors into absurd comedy. Faced with the dark house, they gift fire to the razor bats. In the jaguar house, they toss bones to the beasts like toys. Even their final act, allowing themselves to be burned alive, ground into powder, and reborn as fishmen who dazzle the death gods with miracles, isn't just victory. It's satire, proving that even gods of decay can be fooled by a good show. What makes the Popol Vuh extraordinary isn't just its plot, but its layers of meaning. The ballgame isn't sport, it's the movement of celestial bodies, the struggle between life and death. Xibalba's trials mirror the phases of Venus, that treacherous star the Maya tracked with obsessive precision. And the twins' resurrection, a metaphor for maize buried in the earth only to rise again, green and golden. This isn't mythology as bedtime story, it's an astronomical almanac, a farmer's alchemy, a shaman's roadmap to the spirit world. Yet the Popol Vuh's own survival is as miraculous as its tales. When Spanish missionaries burned Mayan codices as devil's work, a Kayich nobleman salvaged the oral tradition, transcribing it in Roman letters around 1550. Hidden for centuries, it resurfaced in a Guatemalan monastery in the 1800s, its pages whispering across time. Today, modern Maya still perform rituals from its pages, proving that some stories refuse to stay buried. The Popolvuh endures not as a dead artifact, but as a living pulse, a reminder that even when empires fall and languages fade, the stories we tell about beginnings can become our way of never ending. For 1,000 years, the Shahnameh Persia's Book of Kings has been more than just an epic. It's the soul of a nation etched in verse. Written by the poet Ferdowsi in the 10th century, this sprawling masterpiece stitches together myth and history like a tapestry woven with threads of fire and gold. At its heart stands Rostam, Persia's greatest champion, a warrior whose legend is so colossal it makes Hercules look like a page boy. His 7 labors, from slaying a white demon to rescuing a king from a tower of curses, aren't just adventures. They're trials of loyalty, pride, and the unbearable weight of destiny. Take Rostam's most tragic moment, the battle where he unknowingly kills his own son, Sohrab. This isn't just a clash of swords, it's a collision of identities. Sohrab, raised by his mother to revere Rostam, longs to meet his father. Rostam, unaware he even has a son, sees only a formidable foe. When the fatal blow lands and Sohrab's bracelet falls, revealing Rostam's own seal, the warrior's howl of grief echoes across centuries. It's a scene so powerful it inspired poets from Matthew Arnold to modern Iranian filmmakers, proving that the Shahnameh's pain is as timeless as its glory. But Ferdowsi's epic isn't just about heroes, it's about Iran itself. The Shahnameh begins with the dawn of civilization, where kings tame demons and invent justice, and ends with the Arab conquest of Persia in the 7th century. Every line is a defiant act of preservation. When Ferdowsi wrote, Persia's Zoroastrian identity was fading under Islamic rule. By crafting 50,000 verses in pure Persian without Arabic loanwords, he didn't just tell stories, he resurrected a language, a culture, a people's memory. Legend says the Sultan paid him in silver, not gold, for his work, a slight that haunted Ferdowsi to his grave. Yet today, it's the Sultan's name we've forgotten, while the poet's words still set Persian hearts ablaze. The Shahnameh's magic lies in its contradictions. It's a celebration of kingship, yet its most beloved hero, Rostam, serves rulers he often outshines. It's a mosaic of myth, yet its genealogies were once taken as historical fact by scholars. Even its monsters like the Div-e-Sefid, a white demon with a lion's mane and a taste for treachery, aren't just foes. They're mirrors reflecting the darkness even heroes carry. Modern Iran still breathes the Shahnameh's air. Parents name children after its characters. Wrestlers invoke Rostam's strength before matches. During the 2009 protests, demonstrators recited Ferdowsi's verses as coded dissent. Proof that the Book of Kings is more than literature, it's a weapon, a shield, a compass. To read it is to trace the scars and jewels of Persian identity, to understand that a nation's spirit can be shattered, scattered, and still rise again, not in stone or sword, but in syllables that outlast empires. Imagine a story where a monk, a monkey, and a pig walk into hell, and that's just the first chapter. Journey to the West, China's most beloved epic, isn't just an adventure. It's a rollicking, philosophical, and sometimes downright absurd odyssey that's been captivating audiences for over 400 years. At its center storms Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, a rebel so unstoppable he once declared war on heaven itself. Born from a stone, wielding a staff that can grow to pierce the clouds, Sun Wukong isn't your typical hero. He's mischief incarnate, stealing immortal peaches, scribbling his name in the gods' ledgers, and flipping the celestial bureaucracy on its head until even Buddha has to step in, trapping him under a mountain for 5 centuries. His eventual redemption, escorting the pious monk Xuanzang on a perilous pilgrimage to India to fetch sacred Buddhist scriptures. But here's the twist, Xuanzang's journey was real. In the 7th century, the historical monk traversed deserts and bandit-ridden lands to bring Buddhist texts back to China. The novel, written by Wu Cheng'an in the 16th century, transforms this pilgrimage into a mythic carnival. Alongside Sun Wukong and Xuanzang march Zhu Beiji, a gluttonous pigman torn between lust and enlightenment, and Sha Wujing, a reformed river ogre carrying their luggage like the world's strongest intern. Together, they face 81 calamities, not just demons, but temptations, illusions, and their own flaws. Every monster they slay or outwit mirrors a vice to conquer: greed, arrogance, doubt. Even the Buddha's scriptures, when they finally retrieve them, turn out to be blank at first, a cheeky reminder that wisdom isn't in the words but the journey. The genius of Journey to the West lies in its layers. On the surface, it's a slapstick road trip with talking animals and magic battles. Dig deeper, and it's a masterclass in Taoist and Buddhist fusion. Sun Wukong's rebellion mirrors Taoist ideals of challenging rigid authority, while his submission to Xuanzang reflects Buddhist discipline. The trip itself maps the path to enlightenment. Each obstacle is a lesson, each demon a delusion to overcome. Even the number 81 isn't random. It echoes the Taoist belief in 81 stages of spiritual refinement. And then there's the Monkey King's global takeover. Japan's Dragon Ball Goku, a direct descendant of Sun Wukong, complete with stretchable staff and cloud hopping. Netflix's The New Legends of Monkey, China's countless TV adaptations, even video games like Black Myth, Wukong, they all prove this trickster's appeal is universal. Maybe it's his defiance, his humor, or the way he turns every battle into a cosmic prank. But perhaps the real magic is how a 16th century novel can still feel so alive, reminding us that the road to wisdom is paved with equal parts chaos and grace. While China's Monkey King was battling heavenly bureaucrats and Persia's Rostam was mourning his son, Ireland was brewing a storm of its own, a war not over kingdoms or relics, but over a single legendary bull. The Tainbo Cuelge, or cattle raid of Cooley, isn't just a story. It's a window into the Celtic soul, where honor clashed with hunger, and one young warrior's body became a battleground between humanity and something far older. Picture Queen Medibi of Connacht, a ruler so fiercely ambitious she launches an invasion over a trifle. Her husband owns a prize bull and she refuses to be outdone. When Ulster's brown bull of Cooley catches her eye, she doesn't negotiate, she sends an army. But what she doesn't count on is Ulster's secret weapon, a 17-year-old demigod named Cu Chulainn, whose battle rage transforms him into something not quite human. This is where the Tain veers into the uncanny. Cu Chulainn's Ryastrad, his warp spasm, isn't your typical berserker fury. His body contorts like a tree in a hurricane, bones grinding, muscles twisting until one eye sucks into his skull while the other bulges grotesquely. His mouth stretches wide enough to swallow his own head, and a luminous halo of blood erupts from his scalp. This isn't just fighting, it's a shapeshifter's nightmare, a glimpse of the old Celtic belief that warriors could channel the fury of the land itself. Yet for all his monstrous power, Cu Chulainn fights not for glory, but for Jays, a sacred taboo that binds him to defend Ulster, even when its own curse leaves the rest of the men incapacitated by labor pains courtesy of a goddess's vengeance. Medibi, meanwhile, is no cartoonish villain. She's shrewd, relentless, and unapologetically pragmatic. When her forces falter, she doesn't retreat, she bribes, negotiates, and even exploits Cu Chulainn's boyhood oaths to wear him down. Their struggle isn't just physical, it's a chess match of wits and wills where pride and pragmatism collide, and that bull they're fighting over, in the end, it destroys itself battling Medibi's own prize beast, a bitter punchline to the carnage. The Tain doesn't reward its heroes, it strips them bare, revealing the absurdity of war waged for vanity. modern echoes of the tale are everywhere, from comic books reimagining Ku Chulainn as a supernatural antihero to feminist readings reclaiming Medivh as a proto-queen who refused to be lesser. But the saga's real power lies in its unflinching honesty. This is a world where gods meddle, men suffer, and even the victors limp away hollow. The Celts didn't want tidy morals, they wanted stories that tasted of blood and salt, reminders that even the mightiest are just leaves in the wind when the old magic stirs. While the Celts wove their battles around bulls and ancient India spun cosmic wars, the Norse saw the universe as something far more fragile, a great tree trembling on the edge of annihilation. The poetic and prose Eddas, Iceland's medieval treasure troves of myth, don't just tell stories, they map a cosmos where everything, from the lowliest worm to the throne of Odin, hangs in the balance. At the center of it all stands Yggdrasil, the world tree, its roots drilling into realms of ice, fire, and the dead, its branches scraping the heavens. This isn't just a symbol, it's the skeleton of existence humming with energy. The serpent Nidhurga gnaws at its roots, the stag Eikthyr nibbles its leaves, and the squirrel Ratatoska scurries up and down, carrying insults between the eagle at the crown and the dragon below. Every creature, every action is a thread in the tapestry, and the tapestry is fraying. Odin, the All-Father, understands this better than anyone. His hunger for wisdom isn't just curiosity, it's desperation. To learn the runes, he hangs himself from Yggdrasil for 9 nights, pierced by his own spear, a sacrifice to himself. Later, he trades an eye for a sip from Mimir's well, gulping down knowledge of the inevitable, Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods. This isn't some vague prophecy, it's a countdown etched into the bones of the world. The Eddas describe it in chilling detail. The wolf Fenrir breaking his chains, the ship Naglfar sailing on a tide of dead men's nails, brother turning on brother as the sun and moon are swallowed whole. Even Odin, for all his foresight, can't stop it. He can only prepare, gathering warriors in Valhalla for a battle he knows they'll lose. But here's what makes Norse cosmology so gripping: it's not about victory. It's about defiance. When Ragnarök comes, the gods don't beg for mercy. Thor dies strangling the world serpent Jörmungandr. Odin charges Fenrir knowing the beast will devour him. Even the universe itself isn't spared. The earth sinks into the sea and Yggdrasil shakes. Yet the Eddas whisper of a rebirth, a new world rising from the water, green and fresh, where a handful of gods and 2 human survivors will begin again. This cyclical doom and dawn wasn't just myth to the Vikings, it was a mirror. Their lives were short, brutal, and glorious, much like their gods. To face death without flinching, to laugh in the face of fate. That was the lesson carved into every runestone. Modern echoes of the Eddas are everywhere, from Marvel's Thor comics to video games like God of War. But the original texts hold a rawness that pop culture often softens. Odin isn't a wise old man, he's a god who cheats, lies, and stirs wars to stock Valhalla. Loki isn't just a trickster, he's a chaotic force who births monsters and engineers the god's downfall, yet is bound with his son's entrails for his crimes. Even Yggdrasil isn't some serene symbol, it's a living, suffering entity, oozing with dew that's actually the drool of dragons. The Vikings didn't worship gentle deities. They revered beings as flawed and fierce as they were, in a universe where the only certainty was that one day the tree would fall. And maybe that's why these myths still resonate, not despite their darkness, but because of it. In a world where everything ends, courage isn't about winning. It's about standing tall while the roots give way. Somewhere between history and dream, between crumbling Roman forts and the flicker of medieval candles, a legend took shape. One that would outlast empires. King Arthur isn't just a man, he's a mirror reflecting whatever a culture needs him to be. To the Welsh bards of the 9th century, he was Arthur the soldier, a shadowy warlord leading a band of heroes against giants and witches in tales like Culhwch and Olwen. By the 12th century, Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain had given him a crown, a sword, and a wizard. But it was Chrétien de Troyes who spun Arthur's court into Camelot, a glittering stage for chivalry, adultery, and the Holy Grail. This is how myths evolve, not in straight lines but in spirals, each era adding its own gold and tarnish to the armor. Take Excalibur. In the oldest Welsh texts, Arthur's blade is just Caladfwlch, a name as rough-hewn as the warrior who wielded it. By Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur, it's a sword drawn from stone or sometimes a gift from the Lady of the Lake. Its scabbard more precious than the blade itself, for it stops all bleeding. That shift matters. The stone tests worthiness, the lake ties Arthur to the old gods. Even the sword's fate changes, sometimes returned to the water, sometimes broken in battle. Each version whispers a different truth about power. Is it earned, gifted, or cursed? Then there's Merlin, the wild card of the saga. In Welsh lore, he's Myrddin, a mad prophet howling in the forest after witnessing his king's slaughter. French romances tame him into a courtly advisor, but his roots are darker. A figure straddling Christianity and paganism, weaving prophecies like spiderwebs. His magic isn't the clean sorcery of wands, it's the messy power of the earth, of shape-shifting and whispered secrets. That duality, scholar and savage, makes him the perfect architect for Camelot's rise and fall. Camelot, less a place than a longing. In the Mabinogion, Arthur's court is a chaotic mead hall where giants drop by for dinner. By Tennyson's time, it's a gilded dream of might for right, a beacon snuffed out by human frailty. That's the real tragedy. Camelot was never meant to last. It's the brief flare of light before Mordred's betrayal, before Guinevere's love for Lancelot cracks the Round Table's unity. The Grail quest, added late to the mythos, seals the deal. Its purity a rebuke to the knights who have grown complacent, which brings us to the darkest twist. The older Welsh tales have no Lancelot, no Grail, no treasonous romance. Arthur dies fighting his own kin in a battle called Camlan, but there's no Avalon, no promise of return. Just a cryptic line, "Here lies Arthur, the once and future king." That phrase, added centuries later, changes everything. Now he's not just a memory, he's a sleeping savior waiting in the hollow hills for Britain's hour of need. Today, Arthur's shadows stretch from Monty Python's Coconuts to the once and future king's anti-war allegories. Yet the kernel remains, a leader flawed enough to fail, noble enough to inspire, and mysterious enough that we'll never stop digging for him in history books, in Glastonbury's mist, in the space between what was and what might have been. West Africa's rolling savannas and gold-laden rivers hold a story rarely told beyond the continent, an epic of resilience so potent it shaped an empire. The Epic of Sundiata isn't just folklore, it's the living memory of Mali's birth, passed down for 8 centuries by griots, the poet-historians who guard the past in song. At its heart stands Sundiata Keita, a boy who couldn't walk until the age of 7, exiled by a jealous king, yet destined to fulfill a prophecy older than his bones, that he would become the Lion King of Mali, uniting the Mand people under a single banner. Picture a child crawling in the dust while his half-brother's court mocks him. Sundiata's mother, Sogolan, is no royal beauty, she's a hunchback, scorned as the buffalo woman, yet her son's magic lies dormant in her lineage. When Sundiata finally stands, it's not just his legs that strengthen. He tears an entire baobab tree from the earth to prove his might, a moment so electrifying even the griots' voices crackle when recounting it. This isn't just physical strength, it's the land itself recognizing its ruler, but strength alone won't save him. The tyrant Saumayoro Kante, sorcerer king of Soso, has already begun devouring the Mand kingdoms, his tower of human skulls casting a shadow across West Africa. Sundiata's exile becomes his forge. In the courts of foreign kings, he learns war, diplomacy, and something more crucial, how to turn outcasts into an army. The magic here isn't wands and spells, it's the fabric of destiny, a soothsayer foretells Sundayata's rise before his birth. His father, Nare Magan Konate, is gifted a hunter's prophecy: marry an ugly woman, for her son will eclipse the sun. Even Sundayata's eventual victory hinges on the supernatural. Saumayoro's skin is invulnerable until Sundayata's griot reveals his foe's one weakness: a single rooster claw hidden in the sorcerer's sacred chamber. The battle that follows isn't just steel against steel. It's charms unraveling, ancestral spirits whispering tactics, and Sundayata's own transformation from underdog to uniter. What makes this epic extraordinary isn't just its triumphs, but how it breathes today. Griots still perform it in Mali, Senegal, and Guinea, their melodies bending time until Sundayata feels present in the room. Modern historians debate the facts. Was Saumayoro a real oppressor? Did Sundayata's cavalry really carry gold-adorned spears? But the deeper truth endures. This is a story about turning fragility into force. Sundayata's legacy isn't just an empire that controlled half the world's gold. It's the idea that greatness often begins in the margins, with those the world overlooks. The Lion King's tale echoes beyond Africa. Disney's The Lion King borrows its beats, but the original is grittier, richer, steeped in the sweat and blood of real history. Sundayata didn't just reclaim a throne. He crafted a vision of unity so powerful that Mali's Mansa Musa, his descendant, would later stun the world with his pilgrimage to Mecca, scattering gold like seeds. The griots were right all along. Some stories don't fade. They grow claws. Long before Shakespeare penned his tragedies or Jane Austen explored the complexities of love, a Japanese noblewoman was weaving a tale so intricate, so achingly human, that it would become the world's first great novel. The tale of Genji, written by Murasaki Shikibu in the early 11th century, isn't just a story. It's a window into the Heian court, where poetry could make or break a reputation, where a misplaced fan might spark a scandal, and where the line between the living and the dead blurred like ink on silk. At its heart is Genji, the shining prince, a man so radiant with charm and talent that even the emperor's favor can't shield him from the consequences of his own desires. This isn't a saga of battles or quests, but of whispered conversations behind paper screens, of lovers slipping through moonlit gardens, and of the fragile beauty of a world where every emotion is measured in syllables of waka poetry. Genji's greatest adversary isn't a warrior, it's time itself. His pursuit of love becomes a dance with impermanence, as fleeting as the cherry blossoms he so often compares his lovers to. Take the tragic Lady Rokujo. When Genji's affections wane, her jealousy doesn't fade, it lingers, twisting into a living ghost that haunts and eventually kills his new wife, Aoi. This isn't just supernatural flair, it's psychological horror centuries before Freud. Rokujo's spirit acts out what she cannot, the rage of a woman scorned in a society where her worth hinges on a man's attention. But Genji's genius lies in its quiet realism. Murasaki, a lady-in-waiting, wrote not as an outsider but as someone steeped in the rituals of court life. When Genji's political star rises and falls, it's because of a poorly timed letter or a rival's well-placed rumor. When he takes a young girl, Murasaki, under his wing, raising her to be his ideal woman, the modern reader squirms at the uncomfortable power dynamics, yet the Heian court saw it as romantic. The novel refuses to judge, instead painting a world where beauty and cruelty intertwine like the threads of a brocade. What makes the tale of Genji revolutionary isn't just its length or complexity, it's its humanity. Murasaki's characters aren't archetypes, they're full of contradictions. Genji is both generous and selfish, brilliant and blind. Women like the steadfast Murasaki or the heartbroken Lady Fujitsubo navigate a system designed to silence them, yet their voices resonate through the centuries. Even the structure feels modern. Time leaps forward without warning, characters age and die offstage, and the narrative shifts perspectives in a way that wouldn't become common in the West until the 20th century. Today, Genji endures not just as literature but as a cultural touchstone. Artists from Yukio Mishima to contemporary manga creators have reinterpreted its themes. Scholars still debate whether it's a critique of high-end excess or an elegy for its beauty, but perhaps its greatest magic is how it captures a truth that transcends eras, that love, power, and art are as fragile as a moth's wing and just as impossible to resist. Deep in the forests of ancient Germania, where dragon's blood could make a man invincible and a queen's fury could topple kingdoms, the Nibelungenlied unfolds like a tapestry woven with gold and grief. This isn't just a medieval epic, it's a thunderstorm of love, betrayal, and vengeance that echoes from the halls of Burgundy to the pages of modern fantasy. At its heart stands Siegfried, the dragon slayer, whose Achilles' heel isn't a literal spot on his heel, but the trust he places in the wrong people. Bathing in the blood of the beast Fafnir, yes, the same one Sigurd fought in the Volsunga Saga, he becomes nearly invulnerable except for that single spot where a linden leaf stuck to his shoulder. It's a detail so poetic it hurts. Even the mightiest hero has a flaw as fragile as a fallen leaf. Then there's Brunhild, the Icelandic queen with the strength of 12 men, who believes she's marrying King Gunther until she discovers the marriage was consummated through Siegfried's deception. Imagine her fury when she learns the man who defeated her in Gunther's name did so by vanishing under his cloak of invisibility, wrestling her into submission like a ghost. Her humiliation isn't just personal, it's political. In a world where honor is currency, Brunhild's rage becomes the spark that ignites the powder keg of the story. And Kriemhild, Siegfried's widow, she transforms from a gentle princess into an avenging fury so relentless she'd make Medea pause. When Hagen murders Siegfried and sinks the Nibelung gold into the Rhine, Kriemhild's grief curdles into something darker. Her revenge isn't swift, it's a slow-burning inferno that culminates in a feast where the floor runs red with the blood of her own kin. The Nibelungenlied's power lies in its brutal honesty. Unlike the Volsunga Saga, where fate feels like an external force, here, tragedy unfolds through human choices. Gunther's greed, Hagen's loyalty twisted into villainy, Kriemhild's love calcified into vengeance. Even Siegfried, for all his heroism, is no paragon. He enables Gunther's deception and flaunts Brunhild's stolen girdle, a careless boast that seals his fate. The epic doesn't offer heroes or villains. It offers people, flawed and ferocious, trapped in a cycle of violence as old as the Rhine itself. Enter Wagner, who centuries later would distill this saga into his ring cycle, but with a cosmic twist. His Siegfried is more naive, his Brunhild a Valkyrie punished for defiance, and the cursed ring. Now a symbol of industrial age greed drives gods and mortals alike to ruin. Wagner's operas amplify the myth's grandeur but lose some of the Nibelungenlied's gritty intimacy. The medieval poem feels closer to the bone, its characters grounded in the dirt and politics of their world, where a queen's wounded pride can drown a kingdom in blood. What makes this epic endure isn't its magic or its murders. It's the way it stares unflinchingly at the cost of vengeance. Kriemhild gets her revenge, but at what price? The hall burns, her son is slain, and the Rhine's waters swallow the gold and the last shred of her humanity. The Nibelungenlied doesn't let us look away. It forces us to ask, when justice and cruelty wear the same face, who really wins? The answer, like the gold in the river, stays stubbornly out of reach. Imagine waking up in a dark wood, the path lost, the air thick with despair, and realizing you've just begun the most harrowing road trip of all time. Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy isn't just a 14th century poem. It's a cosmic horror story, a theological thriller, and a blistering takedown of Renaissance politics, all rolled into one epic journey through the afterlife. When Dante finds himself trapped in that shadowy forest, he isn't just lost. He's spiritually adrift, his soul teetering on the edge of damnation. Enter Virgil, the ancient Roman poet, who becomes his guide through the 9 concentric circles of hell. each one a meticulously crafted nightmare where sinners endure punishments that mirror their crimes. Gluttons wallow in eternal slush, fraudsters writhe in pits of boiling pitch, and traitors, they're frozen up to their necks in ice, their tears sealing their own eyelids shut. This isn't just punishment, it's poetry in its cruelest form, divine justice as a twisted art exhibit. But Dante's hell isn't just about fire and brimstone. It's a who's who of his era, stuffed with historical figures and personal enemies. Pope Nicholas Roman III, buried headfirst in a rock for simony, shrieks at Dante like a disgraced celebrity caught on camera. Count Ugolino, who allegedly ate his own children in a starvation prison, eternally gnaws on the skull of the archbishop who imprisoned him. Even classical myths get dragged into the inferno. The Minotaur snorts in rage, and Cerberus, the three-headed hound, gorges on souls like a dog ripping into rotten meat. Every circle feels like a grotesque carnival, designed to unsettle as much as educate, because Dante's real mission isn't to scare us but to make us think. What does it mean when lust is punished by an endless whirlwind, tossing adulterers like leaves? Or when hypocrisy condemns people to walk in golden robes lined with lead? The deeper Dante descends, the clearer it becomes. Hell isn't a place, it's a mirror. Then comes purgatory, the realm of hope, a mountain where souls climb toward redemption, each terrace scrubbing away a different sin. The proud crush themselves under boulders to learn humility. The envious have their eyelids sewn shut with wire, forced to rely on inner light. It's brutal, sure, but there's a warmth here that hell lacks. These souls know they're saved, their suffering is temporary, like a wound being cleaned. Even the punishments feel like therapy. Dante meets musicians, artists, and old friends here, all singing hymns as they ascend. The contrast is deliberate. If hell is chaos, purgatory is discipline, a boot camp for the soul, and then paradise, forget harps and fluffy clouds. Dante's heaven is a psychedelic light show, a series of celestial spheres where saints orbit God like planets around the sun. Beatrice, Dante's lost love and now his celestial guide, leads him through realms of increasing radiance where logic fails and words collapse. The mystic rose of the blessed, with its tiers of saints glowing like embers, isn't just beautiful, it's alive, humming with the joy of divine union. Here, history's greatest minds, Thomas Aquinas, King Solomon, even the Trojan hero Ripheus, saved by grace despite being pagan, debate theology in bursts of light. Dante's vision is so intense he can barely describe it, stammering about the love that moves the sun and other stars. It's the ultimate cosmic punchline. After all the horror, all the struggle, the universe isn't ruled by fear or justice but by love. The Divine Comedy's genius lies in its layers. On the surface, it's a guided tour of the afterlife. Dig deeper, and it's a scathing critique of Florence's corruption. Dante was exiled, and he never lets his enemies forget it. Deeper still, it's a roadmap for the soul's journey from sin to grace. Modern adaptations from video games like Dante's Inferno to Dan Brown's Inferno often focus on the horror, but the original is more nuanced. It's a reminder that the darkest woods lead eventually to stars, and maybe that's why we still read it, not for the monsters, but for the hope that even the most broken path might end in light. Picture this, a melody so beautiful it could make stones weep, a love so fierce it defied the very laws of life and death. The story of Orpheus and Eurydice isn't just a Greek myth, it's the original power ballad, a haunting refrain about the limits of art, the price of doubt, and why some echoes never fade. Orpheus, the greatest musician who ever lived, didn't just play music, he commanded it. When he plucked the strings of his lyre, rivers changed course, wild beasts lay down like lambs, and even the gods paused to listen. But his greatest triumph came in the wake of his deepest loss, when his bride Eurydice dies on their wedding day, bitten by a viper as she flees an unwanted admirer. Orpheus doesn't mourn. He acts with nothing but his voice and his lyre. He walks into the underworld, his notes peeling back the shadows like curtains. the ferryman Charon, who demands a coin from every soul, lets him pass unpaid. Cerberus, the three-headed hellhound, whimpers and rolls over. Even the Furies, those ancient scourges of vengeance, are reduced to tears by his song. Hades and Persephone, rulers of the dead, are no exception. For the first time in myth, the god of the underworld relents, offering Eurydice's return on one unbearable condition. Orpheus must walk ahead and never look back until they reach the sunlight. What follows isn't just a test of trust, it's a masterclass in suspense. Step by step through the winding dark, Orpheus listens for Eurydice's footfalls behind him. Is she really there? Is her ghost taunting him? The moment he crosses into the light, he whirls only to catch a glimpse of her outstretched hand before she's yanked back into the abyss, this time forever. Here's the cruel twist. Orpheus doesn't fail because he's selfish. He fails because he's human. Would any of us resist that glance? The myth doesn't villainize his doubt. It weaponizes it, turning love itself into a double-edged sword. His art could melt the hearts of gods, but not the fragility of his own faith. The aftershocks of this tale ripple through history like a chord that never resolves. Virgil and Ovid immortalized it in verse, but its real power lies in the artists who have made it their own. Monteverdi's El Orfeo, the first great opera, turns Eurydice's loss into an aria that aches across centuries. Black Orpheus reimagines the story in Rio's Carnival, where the underworld is a macabre ritual and the viper is a flickering fuse box. Even modern films like Portrait of a Lady on Fire borrow its central tension. The agony of the unseen beloved, the artist's curse of looking too soon. Why does this myth endure? Because it understands that music and grief are twins. Both speak the language of what's missing. Orpheus's final act, wandering the earth, singing only of Eurydice until Maenads tear him apart, isn't just tragedy. It's proof that the most painful art often outlives its maker, carried forward by those who have loved and lost in his shadow. The gods let him keep one thing, his lyre, placed among the stars as the constellation Lyra. A small comfort, perhaps, but then again, what's a myth if not a reminder that even the briefest harmony can echo forever? Every culture begins with a question: how did all this come to be? The answers, spun across continents and centuries, reveal as much about humanity's fears and dreams as they do about the cosmos. Take the Greeks, where creation begins with chaos, not disorder, but a yawning void pregnant with possibility. From it emerges Gaia, the earth itself, who births the sky, the mountains, and the sea without a partner, a testament to ancient Greece's reverence for the feminine as the ultimate source. But this isn't a gentle genesis. Uranus, the sky, looms over his children, pressing them back into Gaia's womb until Cronus, the youngest Titan, wields a sickle forged by his mother to castrate his father. The blood that spills births giants and furies, while the severed flesh thrown into the sea foams into Aphrodite. Here, creation isn't just birth, it's violence, passion, and the unending cycle of rebellion. Half a world away, the Aboriginal peoples of Australia tell a different story. The dream time isn't a single moment but an eternal unfolding, where ancestral spirits like the rainbow serpent slither across the land, carving rivers with their bodies and singing mountains into existence. Every rock, every tree hums with their presence, and creation isn't locked in the past, it's a living conversation. When a child learns to find water in the desert by watching ants, that's the dream time still speaking. Unlike the Greek gods who reign from Olympus, these spirits are inseparable from the land, teaching that humans aren't conquerors but caretakers of a world already complete and sacred. Then there's the Yoruba myth from West Africa, where the supreme god Olodumare delegates creation to the Orisha Obatala. Climbing down a golden chain with a snail shell full of earth and a sacred hen, Obatala spreads land over the primordial waters, but his work is almost undone by his own curiosity. When he samples palm wine and grows drunk, his rival Orisha Ojujuwa seizes the task, finishing the world while Obatala sleeps. This isn't just a tale of rivalry, it's a meditation on imperfection. The Yoruba embrace the idea that even the divine can falter, and that creation, like humanity, is a collaborative work in progress. Compare these to the Norse, where the giant Ymir's butchered body becomes the world, his flesh the soil, his blood the seas, his skull the sky. Or to the Japanese Kojiki, where the deities Izanagi and Izanami stir the oceans with a spear, and the drops that fall harden into islands. What unites them all isn't just magic, but meaning. The Greeks see a universe born of strife, the Aboriginal peoples a world alive with spirit, the Yoruba a canvas for both brilliance and error. These myths aren't just stories, they're the first philosophies carved not in stone but in the human heart, asking us what we believe about power, responsibility, and our place in the grand design. Perhaps that's the real magic. However the world began, these stories remind us that creation isn't just something that happened once, it's happening still, every time we look at the stars and wonder. Deep in the birch forests of Eastern Europe, where the wind carries whispers older than the first stars, a figure crouches in a hut that stands on chicken legs waiting. Baba Yaga isn't just a witch, she's a paradox wrapped in bone and iron, a crone who might feed you or devour you depending on the day or the tale. Unlike Western witches with their cauldrons and curses, Baba Yaga rides a mortar, steering it with a pestle like some demented druggist careening through the night sky. Her fence, human bones, her gait, a jaw that clacks shut to trap the unwary. Yet for all her horrors, she's no simple villain. Ask her for help, and she might hand you a magic comb or a ball of thread to guide your way, provided you're clever enough to survive her tests. Consider the tale of Vasilisa the Beautiful, sent by her wicked stepmother to fetch fire from Baba Yaga's hut. The witch sets impossible tasks, sorting millet from dirt, cleaning her filthy house, baking a feast. Vasilisa succeeds not through strength, but through the quiet magic of her late mother's blessing, a doll in her pocket that whispers advice. Here, Baba Yaga is both adversary and unwitting mentor, forcing the girl to prove her wit and worth. When the witch demands to know how Vasilisa completed the tasks, the girl lies flawlessly. "By my mother's love," she says, dodging the truth of the doll. Baba Yaga, smelling deception, roars, "Get out, child of blessing, I want no blessed ones in my house," and tosses her a skull lantern full of fire, the very thing she came for. It's a moment that crackles with double meaning. The witch rewards cunning even as she fears the sacred. Modern feminist readings peel back these layers like birch bark. Baba Yaga straddles archetypes: mother, monster, outcast. She's unbound by men's rules, living alone in a mobile home that defies physics. Her ugliness, those iron teeth that knows long enough to scrape the ceiling, isn't just grotesque, it's armor against a world that fears old, powerful women. In some stories, she's a sovereignty goddess in decay, a relic of pre-Christian Slavic paganism where elder women held spiritual authority. When she asks visitors, "Are you here of your own will or by compulsion?" It's not small talk, it's a sacred question probing autonomy. The right answer changes with each telling because Baba Yaga's morality isn't black or white. It's the gray of charcoal, of storm clouds, of wisdom worn rough by time. Artists keep reinventing her. Hellboy comics turn her into a cigar-chomping rebel. John Wick borrows her name for its assassin underworld, twisting her into a male power broker, a choice that would likely make the real Baba Yaga cackle. Meanwhile, illustrators like Ivan Bilibin paint her as skeletal and terrifying, while modern witches reclaim her as a patroness of the marginalized. She's been called a feminist icon, an environmental guardian, even a queer symbol, her hut's refusal to stay rooted echoing the fluidity of identity. But perhaps her greatest trick is how she defies definition. Baba Yaga doesn't just live in a house that moves, she lives in the spaces between categories. Helper or hindrance, goddess or hag, the answer shifts like moonlight through branches, leaving only the certainty of her laughter and the creak of her mortar flying somewhere beyond the edge of the map. Somewhere between the rustling leaves of West Africa's forests and the sweltering sugarcane fields of the Caribbean, a spider spins stories that stretch across oceans, survive chains, and outwit empires. Anansi, the trickster god with 8 legs and a bottomless appetite for both food and mischief, isn't just a character. He's a survival manual disguised as folklore, a masterclass in turning weakness into weaponry. Picture this, a creature so small he could be crushed underfoot, yet so cunning he traps leopard in a web of his own pride, outsmarts python with a logic puzzle, and even tricks Niame, the sky god, into surrendering all the stories in the world in exchange for a handful of impossible tasks. That's the heart of Anansi's magic. He never wins by strength, only by wit, proving that brains will always outweigh brawn when the odds are stacked against you. But these tales aren't just entertainment, they're a covert resistance. When enslavement scattered West Africans across the Americas, Anansi didn't just survive the Middle Passage, he adapted. In the Carolinas, he shape-shifted into Biara Rabbit, another trickster whose "please don't throw me in the briar patch" routine exposed the cruelty of his oppressors while making them laugh at their own foolishness. The stories became a language of defiance, whispered in quarters where rebellion could mean death. A slave might chuckle at Biara Fox's downfall while secretly celebrating the lesson. Even the powerless can triumph if they're clever enough. The brilliance of Anansi's tales lies in their duality. To children, they're whimsical fables about a greedy spider who gets his comeuppance, like the time he tried to hoard all the world's wisdom in a gourd, only to drop it and scatter knowledge to everyone. To adults, they're sharp social commentary. In one Jamaican version, Anansi convinces Tiger to tie himself to a tree before a storm, promising it's for safety, only for Tiger to realize too late he's been tricked into bondage. The subtext, a warning about trusting those who profit from your submission. Modern storytellers still weave Anansi's threads. Neil Gaiman's Anansi Boys pits his sons against each other in a battle of charm and chaos. Caribbean literature keeps him alive as a symbol of cultural resilience. Even Marvel Comics gave him a cameo, nodding to his mythic reach. But the real magic isn't in the adaptations, it's in the oral tradition that still thrums under the surface. When a Jamaican grandma tells of Anansi and the Yam Hills, or a Ghanaian elder recounts how he tricked death into a sack, they're not just preserving the past. They're spinning new silk for the next generation, ensuring the spider's web never snaps. Anansi's ultimate trick, making us believe he's just a character in a story, when really he's the loom on which entire cultures have been woven. Among the emerald canopies of the Amazon and the glacial peaks of the Andes, one legend has lured explorers to their doom and ignited the greed of empires, the shimmering dream of El Dorado. This wasn't just a city of gold, it was a ceremony, a man, and ultimately a colonial fantasy so seductive it rewrote history. The myth began with the Muisca people of Colombia, where a new ruler underwent a ritual so dazzling it seared itself into Spanish conquistador imaginations. Covered head to toe in gold dust, the Gilded One would paddle to the center of Lake Guatavita on a raft laden with treasures, then plunge into the waters as his subjects threw jewels and golden offerings after him. A king washing away his wealth to begin his reign with humility. But to the invaders it became a smoking gun, proof of a kingdom dripping with bullion. Gonzalo Pizarro, brother of the conqueror of the Incas, launched the first major expedition in 1541, dragging thousands of indigenous porters and hundreds of horses into the jungle. They found no gold, only starvation, disease, and the skeletons of those who'd come before. Sir Walter Raleigh doubled down a century later, his men hacking through vines with court poets in tow, convinced El Dorado lay just beyond the next river. They returned empty-handed, Raleigh's own son killed in a skirmish with Spanish troops. The tragedy wasn't just the lives lost, it was the willful blindness. Indigenous guides pressed into service under torture spun tales to lead their captors deeper into lethal swamps, buying time for their people to flee. The conquistadors, ravenous for a prize that never existed, became ghosts in their own obsession. Yet the real twist came in the 21st century when modern archaeologists began peeling back the myth. LiDAR scans revealed vast, interconnected cities in the Amazon, not paved with gold but with sophisticated earthworks and roads spanning hundreds of miles. The Cuicuro people of Brazil's Xingu region guard stories of these garden cities, where their ancestors cultivated orchards and managed forests like living cathedrals. The gold wasn't literal, it was the knowledge of how to thrive in the jungle without destroying it. El Dorado's legacy isn't just a cautionary tale of greed, it's a mirror. For the Muisca, gold was sacred, meant to be returned to the earth. For the Europeans, it was currency to be hoarded. Today, as illegal gold mining poisons Amazonian rivers with mercury, the old story loops back on itself. The true curse wasn't the lack of treasure, but the inability to see its real value. The raft, the lake, the golden man, they were never the point. The real El Dorado was the understanding that some wealth isn't meant to be stolen, only witnessed. From the thunder-battered halls of Asgard to the whispering forests of the Amazon, from the golden betrayals of Troy to the shape-shifting trickery of Anansi's webs, we've wandered through 25 sagas where gods walk alongside mortals, where love sparks wars and grief moves mountains, where magic isn't just a force but a mirror reflecting humanity's oldest questions. What's striking isn't just the variety of these tales, but the threads that bind them, the dread of mortality, the hunger for belonging, the audacity to defy fate. Whether it's Gilgamesh weeping over Enkidu's body or Orpheus turning too soon, whether it's Baba Yaga's riddles or Sandhyata's rise from weakness to kingship, these aren't just stories. They're the blueprints of our collective psyche, the dreams we've whispered across campfires and scrolls and screens for millennia. Think about it. The Maya's hero twins outwitting death in Xibalba isn't so different from Odysseus tricking Polyphemus or Anansi hoarding wisdom only to spill it for all. The Norse knew, just as the Maori and the Greeks did, that creation isn't tidy, it's born from chaos, from sacrifice, from the guts of giants and the blood of old gods. And in every corner of the world, someone raised a hero or a monster to explain the storms, the stars, the ache of a heartbroken king, or the fury of a scorned queen. These legends don't just belong to their cultures, they belong to us, to anyone who's ever stared into the dark and needed a story to make sense of it. So here's where the real magic happens. The myths we've explored are just the beginning. Maybe your favorite saga didn't make the list, a Celtic tale that haunts you, an Inuit legend that chills your bones, or an epic from your own heritage that deserves the spotlight. Drop it in the comments. Let's keep this conversation alive, because the beauty of mythology isn't just in the telling, it's in the retelling, the reimagining, the way these old bones can still grow new flesh in our imaginations. If you've enjoyed this journey through the shadows and marvels of history's greatest stories, don't let it end here. Hit subscribe and let's keep unraveling the mysteries, one saga at a time. After all, the next legend might be waiting just beyond the fire.